I think they should join the YouTube channel for Up in Your Business so they never miss anything. And then they can get the highlights after the show's over with.
And they can look at all the funny faces we make the whole time.
Yeah, because you get all the behind-the-scenes stuff. So I would say subscribe to the YouTube channel. If it were I may have to change that script. But thank you anyway, Gray, for that almost good, informative information.
Anytime.
My guest today has a different kind of success story. A story that is often overlooked, but nonetheless just as fulfilling and challenging as a career as any. Miss Vickie Calhoun is a professional wife, mother, and homemaker. Born in Great Britain with dual citizenship, she and her family supported and followed their Air Force father's career all over the world. By the age of 17, when she left home, she had gone to school in numerous cities and lived in 4 countries, Great Britain, France, Germany, and the United States, all in support of her father's military career. Later in her 20s, she would marry and support another military man in a different way. For a short time, she lived in Japan with her husband, a military doctor. They had 3 children before tragedy struck, and Vickie was widowed after just 15 years of marriage. Listening to my friend talk about what she calls the subculture of living on a military base is interesting and unknown to most people. You often hear the stories of men and women that sacrifice and serve, but what about their families? They serve too. Today we're going to peek behind the curtain of growing up military, hear about Vickie's first experiences with racism when she came to America, learn about the rules and responsibilities bestowed on families living on base, and ask how she rebuilt her life and grew her family after tragedy struck. It is a pleasure to welcome to the table my friend, my neighbor, and a professional homemaker, I'm proud to say, Miss Vickie Calhoun.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Push Vickie's microphone up closer to her.
Okay.
There you go.
First time.
First time. So full disclosure, you and I are in a monthly girls' supper club.
Yes.
And we meet first Tuesday of every month.
Right.
So to replicate the evening that we have together, don't get scared. I asked my son Matt to pick up your favorite libation, which I just happen to know is red wine. Bring in the wine, son Matthew.
Thank you. Oh, that's my surprise.
That's your surprise.
Thank you. Could have used that about an hour ago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the This is the first.
Can we drink?
This is a first. Yes.
This is absolutely a first.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Here we go.
So, let's start at the beginning, Vickie. Your father was in the Air Force, stationed in Great Britain during World War II, where he met. No?
After World War II. 1951 or 2.
1951, where he met your mother, and she was a Brit.
Yep.
Do you know the story of how they met?
Yes. Her friend, because they were young girls, her friend's father owned a tea shop and tea and coffee. And the GIs would come in for coffee. And so my mom's friend was dating one of the GIs, and she said to my mom, "You really need to come here and meet you need to come here. We got someone for you."
So she wasn't working there. Her friend was working there?
Her friend's father owned it.
Ah.
And so my mom, she was probably 16.
Wow.
Yeah. They get out of school at 16 over there unless you go to college. So she was already out of school working. So she went to this little tea shop, met my dad, and that's kind of how they met.
How long did they date before they married?
I think about a year and a half. And my grandmother, very British lady, said to my father, "You're not taking her to America unless you marry her."
How many brothers and sisters did your mother have?
Just a sister, one sister.
And so did she marry a GI?
No. Mm-mm.
So your grandmother got to keep one daughter?
One daughter. And actually, during World War II, my grandmother's husband, my granddad was killed in World War II, and she took care of the German prisoners, and she dated the GIs that were over there in World War II.
So your grandmother was a nurse during World War II?
Yeah.
And she cared for the German prisoners that were wounded, and she dated GIs?
Yeah. But she went and married one because she didn't want to come to America.
She wouldn't marry a GI. And she'd already had the both of you. I mean, the both of your aunt and grandmother.
Mom. Yeah, and during the Blitz when they were pounding.
What's a Blitz?
Well, the Blitz, I forgot what year it started. It's when Germany started pounding England. They really pounded London. It was called the Blitz. And so my mom...
With bombing.
Like bomb. They just bombed the heck out of London. I forgot what year. But what they would do is they would pass over. My mom lived on a little coastal town. And whatever bombs they didn't drop in London, they'd pop it off on her town on the way back to Germany. Because they were right there on a channel.
And why would they do that?
Just getting rid of their ordnance. Just bomb more people. They were going back over to Germany, so they didn't want to bring any more bombs back with them.
So the Germans were doing a bombing raids.
Oh, it was terrible.
On
yes.
London.
Mm-hmm.
And your mother lived outside of London.
Mm-hmm.
How old was she when this was going on?
She was 4 or 5 years old. And then, as a matter of fact, her father was killed. He was a carpenter, so they kept the carpenters and those folks so they could be rebuilding. That everything was getting blown up.
So he didn't join the service?
No, they wanted him to rebuild things.
In the infrastructure.
Right. And so he actually, a bomb landed as he was out trying to get these old people into a shelter, and it killed him. And my grandmother was 25 years old.
And had probably 4-year-olds.
And she had a 4-year-old, yeah, and a 5-year-old. And then after that, my mom, and you've probably heard the stories about the children who were evacuated.
No.
You haven't heard about that?
Uh-uh.
Okay. Oh, so anyway, they evacuated all these school children from these coastal areas because they were getting bombed as well. So they would send them to the interior part of England because the Germans had nothing over there. Because they were bombing the seaports, they were bombing London. So my mother and her sister, with all the little school children, went with their teachers, were put on a train with a little tag, and taken out into the countryside in Somerset, which is pretty far inland, and taken to a church, and the people in the village would come and pick up the children that they wanted. And my mom and her sister were the last two because nobody wanted 2 girls. They wanted boys to work on a farm because it's agriculture. Mm. So my mom and her sister were the last to get
And they
there.
foster parented them?
For a year. For a year, she never saw her mother. And she had just lost her father. Yeah. So that was terrible.
What did your mother do during that time? Work as a nurse?
No, my mom was a child. But
your grandmother.
My grandmother, she wasn't really a nurse, but her job, everybody in England had to do something.
Oh. Mm.
So she was called in what they called the land army. And so what they did, they took care of the prisoners, they planted trees, just to rebuild England. And she did that, oh gosh, for about 2 or 3 years.
What was your grandmother like after living through all of that? Was she bitter?
No. Mm-mm. She was a very well-educated woman. She worked her entire life.
She ever remarry?
Yes, she did. About 14 years later, she married my grandfather. Yeah, yeah. A Londoner. My granddad was from London. And so she had to move around a lot because she had to live with relatives because she didn't have much money. And she had these 2 little girls. And so my mom told me one story. They lived above a fish and chip shop. Her brother owned a fish and chip shop. And she said that, they got to eat all the fish and chips she's ever wanted. Mm-hmm. And they would just move. And finally they moved back to Ramsgate, where she was from.
And your mother, not your grandmother, but your actual mother, what did she say about those years that she and her sister, at least they didn't get separated, they got to go together?
They got to go together.
So what did she say about those years, and how did that affect her later?
I think she had PTSD. I think all her life she had PTSD. I think it really affected my mom.
In what ways?
She was very anxious in her entire life. Just very anxious, worried all the time.
She leave the house?
Oh, yeah. She wasn't agoraphobic. No. I don't know exactly.
But she's got Alzheimer's now. Let's just go forward.
She does.
And one of the ways she has PTSD is her behavior at the memory center, right?
Yeah.
Tell our listeners what she does.
Oh, well, I was there today. They were celebrating Christmas. And now my mom's pretty far into her Alzheimer's travel. She's probably, if you're going from a scale of 1 to 10, my mom's probably about an 8. But she's ambulatory. She can walk. She can feed herself, but she doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know who I am. She doesn't know anybody. But she likes to eat everything, whether it's a decoration or...
She's going to eat the artificial grapes?
Yes.
But doesn't she think there's a bomb going off? Doesn't she still... Isn't her PTSD coming out because she thinks that you need to be taking cover? I thought I heard you say that one
That
day.
must be my grandmother. My grandmother was always frightened. Especially if my grandmother was visiting me here in Arkansas, if the tornado sirens go off, it sounds just like an air raid. And my poor grandmother would just go berserk.
She had PTSD.
She did as well.
I guess everybody has PTSD.
I think, yeah.
I mean, you go through something like that, we just never really gave it a name. I think in World War II, they used to call it shell-shocked.
Yeah.
So this is a great place to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with professional homemaker Miss Vickie Calhoun and listen as she shares stories of growing up in a military family and the subcultures on a military base, because her mother did get to marry this GI after she dated him a year and a half. And Vickie is got dual citizenship, and she grew up on the base. And one of the things I find interesting is the subculture. I've never heard it called the subculture of living on a military base. But we're going to peek behind the curtains and find out what that's back after the break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. Over 40 years ago, with only $400, Kerry founded Arkansas Flag and Banner. During the last 4 decades, the business has grown and changed. Over this time, Kerry's business and leadership knowledge grew. As early as 2004, she began sharing her knowledge in her weekly blog. In 2009, she founded the nonprofit Friends of Dreamland Ballroom, and in 2014, Brave Magazine, a biannual publication. Today, she has branched out into this very radio show, YouTube channel, and podcast. Each week, you'll hear candid conversations between her and her guests about real-world experiences on a variety of businesses and topics that we hope you'll find interesting, inspiring, and educational. Stay up to date by going to flagandbanner.com and joining our email list. You'll receive our popular Water Cooler Weekly email that notifies you of upcoming guests, happenings at Dreamland Ballroom, sales at flagandbanner.com, access to Brave magazine articles, and Kerry's current blog post. All that in one weekly email. Telling American-made stories, selling American-made flags. TheFlagandBanner.com. Back to you, Kerry.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with a once military brat, once military wife, and a widow, Miss Vickie Calhoun. Vickie is a survivor and a family supporter who has lived all over the world with dual citizenship from the USA and Great Britain. Before the break, we talked about her mother, really, and her father, and the after World War II bombings, and the PTSD that affected her parents and her grandparent, which I just think is interesting to hear about. But now, your grandmother let your mother marry your father, and so you have dual citizenship because I guess you were born in Great Britain.
And my dad was not on active duty there. He was in America. And I was born to a British mother in a British hospital. And if my dad had been there on active duty, I wouldn't have dual citizenship. My mom just decided to take a vacation while she was pregnant with me and had me over there.
What? Well, I'm almost pregnant. I think I'll just go over to Great Britain. You think maybe she was planning that?
I kind of think so.
I mean, are you supposed to travel when you're almost when you're due? Were you early? I mean, what was the deal?
No, I was not early. She just missed her family, and she went home.
And had the baby. And your dad is stationed in America.
Yeah, I think he was in Arizona.
So your dad is in the Air Force. What does he do? What was his job?
He was an air traffic controller.
Okay, that's a stressful job.
Very.
So did she come back to America?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, we came on the Queen Mary to America. My sister, who is 12 months older than me, we came back on the Queen Mary.
Is she got dual citizenship?
No, because she wasn't born in England.
I bet she's upset about that.
Well, maybe. She's not here.
Yeah, she's, for the listeners, she passed away a couple years ago. So when did you decide to go to Great Britain? Or when did your dad get transferred to, or where was your first station? I guess I should say, when it was your first memory of being on base?
South Dakota.
South Dakota?
Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota. I probably was about 4 years old. I remember it because they would have these, they're probably having it right now, gigantic snowfalls and drifts. And we would get snowed in, and the drifts would be at the top of our roof, and we could slide down on our sleds from top of our roof. Yeah, it was pretty cool. That was South Dakota.
I'd remember that too.
Yeah.
No wonder that's a memory. And how long did y'all live there?
When was it when Kennedy was killed?
62? I think so.
Oh, something like that. So I remember I was in
What year were you born?
55.
Okay.
So I think we left there, I can't tell you, in 64 to Germany. My dad got stationed in Germany in 1964. It's really, I should have written this all down. I didn't.
60, yeah, it's complex. It's so in six, and we've just now started getting into it. It's going to get more complex.
Oh, no.
We've got 40 minutes to get it all
Oh,
out.
my
All
God.
Okay. So you said
64, we went to Germany.
64, you went to Germany and lived on an air base.
Well, actually, when you first get to a duty station, you don't get to move right on base. You have to wait your turn. You have to wait for someone to leave. So we lived on what they would call the economy. We lived in a village with German people. We rented a little apartment. Actually, we lived upstairs of someone's house. And we lived there for a year in a little village. And they didn't speak English. We didn't speak German. But we, played charades a lot. And we got along. And I played with all the little neighborhood kids. And, it was just fun. It was magical, actually, because Christmas time in Germany is like no other place. And I remember that, the winter and the Christmas time there.
Why?
Because it's just so German, Christmas.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the Christmas tree,
Mm-hmm.
there were Christmas trees, the big square had the gigantic Christmas tree. And I think it was my first time to be in Germany, to experience that culture.
Christmas does seem German.
Yeah,
You have the
Christmas
famous Christmas markets that are, with the, mhm.
Yeah. It was.
So you got to move on base.
Yes, we did.
And how long did you stay in Germany?
4 years.
What was that base like?
Oh, it was pretty good. They were fighter jets. So they were all the fighter jets because every base has either fighters, technicals, SAC. There's all these different names.
Cargo.
Everything. So this base was strictly fighter jets. And this was, I guess, during the Cold War. Mm-hmm. And so when you live on an Air Force base, this is how it goes. If you're an officer, you live over in this nice little neighborhood. You have a nicer house. And if you're enlisted, you live over here. Not so nice. It was
were y'all?
segregated. We were enlisted. My dad was enlisted. So that was my first segregation that I saw. And that was like whoever was enlisted, you're over there. Didn't matter what color you were enlisted. But I didn't notice it so much when I went to school with all the kids. I mean, we're all military kids. We're all coming and going. That's another thing. You're moving all the time. You make a friend. Oh, they're leaving. Here comes another friend. So
Where'd you move to the second time?
we moved to Massachusetts.
So how old are you now?
Oh, my gosh. I think I'm in 6th grade. What's that, 12, 13? I was 13, I think.
What a terrible age to move.
Well, I didn't know anything different.
But you went to a military base.
Yep.
So
again.
they're all again.
It's the same thing. And you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
This is all I knew. And this is what all of us children knew. We just had a short period of time. Our friends are coming and going. So you make friends very quick. And you just, you don't get upset. You have to say goodbye a lot.
Is it cliquish?
No, I didn't find it cliquish. No.
You don't need to make problems for yourself because you move all the time and it's not like a bunch of kids getting together trying to create problems because there's not enough drama. When you're on a military base, there's drama all the time, probably.
Well, it's 24-hour security driving around all the time, which was nice, but you can also get caught and get in trouble. And then if you get caught and get in trouble, you don't get in trouble, your father gets in trouble.
What happens to him?
Well, if his commanding officer will have a little chit-chat with him. And then my dad would come home and have a little chit-chat with us, or mostly me. But that wasn't really till I was a teenager. that was not happening in Massachusetts. And actually, we were in Massachusetts for 1 year, and then my dad went to Vietnam.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened?
And then we moved to Michigan to be near my mother's parents, who had immigrated. They were immigrants. They immigrated to Michigan. My granddad worked for Pfizer and got a job with General Motors.
So your grandmother that didn't want her to marry a GI has now moved to America.
And she hated every minute of it. Did not want to be in America. Didn't like it. And I get it. She, it's easier to live in England. She didn't know how to drive a car. She took a bus everywhere. She lived in a little village. Now she's in Detroit.
You better know how to drive a car in Detroit.
She lived outside Detroit. So if you can imagine coming from a very beautiful coastal little town in England and moving to Detroit, it was a shock.
How long did she live there?
I think about 18 years. And then they moved to Florida, where my father retired, and they retired in Florida.
Well, that was a good ending. So you've moved. Your family has moved up there to be next to your mother's mother, your grandmother, and your father is in Vietnam, and you're scared to death.
Well, I never went to a public school. I'd always been to school on a military base. We're all, military. So I remember I'm a freshman in high school, and I'm living kind of in a project, basically. That's where we were living. And I just remember getting to the school, and I would see all these white kids. And I thought, well, where is everybody else? And then, here comes a bus full of black kids. And I thought, well, why is this? So a friend of mine who was not military, because this was not a military school, said, don't you know anything? I said, well, no, I guess I don't. And so she explained it to me that those folks live over there and we live over here. I said, oh, that's weird. Yeah, that was my first.
And you were wondering where everybody was because you were used to going
everywhere. I mean, I had Filipino friends. I had Japanese friends. I had black friends. I mean,
You're on base.
I was on base. So, yeah, it was a real eye-opener.
That was your first taste of real segregation.
Yes.
And that was in Michigan?
That was in Michigan.
So how long did you stay there? Did your dad
1
stay
year,
in Vietnam?
18 months.
And then he came back and got stationed where?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Onto an Air Force base?
Yes. But we had to live off base till someone moved. And so I did live off base for 1 year. And then we moved on to Air Force Base. Now, I want to say something.
Okay.
So when you're growing up in a military family, and when you're moving, there's a weight limit on what you can take with you when you're moving. So I don't know exactly what our weight limit was, but I just remember I would have this little box, and all my stuff had to go in that box. And I didn't see that box until maybe 3 or 4 months when we got to our new duty station. And it was just like having Christmas every time I saw that box, because everything I owned was in that box. All my toys, just everything.
So character building. The whole story that you have told seems like it's just...
Really?
Yeah, character building, learning to make friends, learning to move, learning to not be so materialistic that you have to...
You only had one box.
You only get one box. So you're living in...
We're in Charleston, okay? Mm-hmm. My dad's back from Vietnam, and we're in Charleston, and I was 10th grade. Went to a military school again. So I'm back in the military system school. I'm not in a public school. And then I graduated at 17. And my mom had some strict rules. She said, well, if you don't like it, leave. So I did. So I worked and had like 5 roommates and went to school at night.
You know, the subculture that you talk about on military base, breaking the rules and the consequences affected your father. So there's a lot of guilt in that, I imagine, making you stay pretty on the straight and narrow. But what about taps?
Oh, okay. So every morning when they would raise the flag, I forget what they would call it, but if you were driving a car or if you were walking and if you were in uniform, you had to stop.
What if you're not in uniform?
Well, you had to just stand there, put your hand over your heart,
Okay.
And they would play, I don't think they played the national anthem in the morning. But every evening at 5 o'clock, they would play taps. Sorry, I just coughed and thing. And I remember you're driving on base, boy, when any of that bugle goes, you stop that car. Everybody stops their car.
Oh, you stop the car?
Oh, yes, you stop the car, and you sit in that car. But if you're in uniform, like I didn't wear a uniform, I wasn't active duty, you get out of the car, and you salute, or you put your hand over your heart if you're in uniform. And the whole world stops for about, 2, 3, 4 minutes while they lower the flag. And they play the national anthem. And another little gem is when we would go to the movies on base, you get there and you sit down. No, you sit down and then all of a sudden you got to stand up. It's like being in church. And they play the national anthem.
Before every movie?
For every movie. Before every movie. So I remember when I went to a movie off base, I'm standing up waiting for the national anthem. And my friend said, "What you doing?" I said, "Well, aren't they going to play the national anthem?" She goes, "No, we don't do that here." Oh, and then if you do, if you get in trouble on base, like I did get a speeding ticket one day. Oh, gosh, I got a speeding ticket. And so I had to tell my dad. Well, he'd already found out because he'd already gotten a call from his commander. And my dad said, "Okay, that's one. We can only have 2 more." So, and then if you have 3, boom, you're off base. They'll kick you off the base. Your whole family would have to move.
I think it's good to grow up on base.
Yeah, I felt really good. They had 24-hour transportation. You could hop on a bus, and yeah.
Felt safe?
I felt very safe. Because they had...
It sounds like you learned great coping skills, too.
I guess. I think so.
All right. This is a great place to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with the professional homemaker, Miss Vickie Calhoun. She thinks that's funny. In this next segment, we'll talk about a military wife's expectations. We'll hear how Vickie overcame tragedy when her husband was diagnosed with an incurable disease and left her widowed with 3 small children after just 15 years of marriage. I want to remind everyone we're broadcasting live every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. Central Time on 101.1 The Answer and Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy's Facebook page. Also, on Fridays, a re-airing of the show is broadcasted on KABF 88.3 FM at 2 p.m., and a podcast is made available on all popular listening sites and YouTube. Phone number if you want to call in and ask Vickie a break about being a military wife when we come back.
It's time to think about Flag and Banner for Christmas gifts. Now we've got...
Oh, how am I doing?
Great.
Fabulous. Am I really?
Yeah,
So interesting. I told you she's so interesting.
And all that stuff.
Oh, that's great. That's even better.
She's so interesting.
Do you think this is interesting? It's my life, hon.
Everybody has a story to tell.
Everybody has a story. Yeah.
This is
But
why
I
I want
must-
her to
Some
come
are more
on.
interesting than others.
Hers is
but-
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's some stuff I'm not going to tell you.
Come on.
Because I don't need to. Because my children are listening. I do keep something secret.
Huh?
I do keep something secret.
Fair enough.
Are we going to go back on?
Yeah, in a second.
So today is the day of my... What we won't discuss
Here we
this.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Miss Vickie Calhoun, who, because of her military family life, harkens from around the world with dual citizenship from the USA and Great Britain. If you have questions you'd like to ask her, if you're thinking about marrying a military man, you might want to call and ask her about it before you do it. She's pretty big proponent of the lifestyle, but we're going to find out more about it. But you can call her because Gray is going to give you the number how.
You can call 501-823-0965.
One more time, son.
501-823-0965.
So before the break, we talked about Vickie's grandmother, mother, and father after World War II, living in England. Really interesting. If you missed that, it's really interesting. And what was that called? Blitz? The Blitz?
The Blitz.
The Blitz.
Over London.
And then and then we took a break, and then we came back and we talked about growing up military and all the places she lived and the rules that you have to go by, and the and just the lifestyle of living on base, which is really different. And how she was in culture shock when she came out.
I did.
It did some kind of funny things. If you missed it, you should go back and hear. So, but now we're going to talk about you meeting your husband. You've chosen to go back into the military life because you...
Well, actually, I wanted to join the military.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, tell us about that.
Okay. Well, my dad, when I graduated from high school, I was going to join the military. So my dad said, no, you're not. Because he goes, no, you're going to go to college. You're not going to join the military. Afterwards, if you want to go in the military, you can. I said, okay. So, but I just worked and went to school at night. So it was going to take me a long time to get there. So in the meantime, I met my husband who was in the Navy. So this is a whole different branch of the military because you got the Air Force, you got the Navy, there's Marines and Army. And dated him for, I don't know, 1 or 2 years, and he got orders to Japan. He said, you want to go? I said, yeah. We weren't married yet. And I said, yes. So he went to Japan, and I followed. But I couldn't stay but 3 months because of my visa. You know, they're very strict over there. When you arrive in Japan, you better have a ticket paid out, or you can't come in. And so I had my ticket out, and then my visa was 3 months, and then we had to go to Guam, and I got married in Guam because it's a U.S. territory.
So you went over there not married.
Right.
And stayed there 3 months on a visa. And then you flew over to Guam, got married. Now could you stay in Japan with him?
But we could never live on base because I was not command sponsored. They did not bring me over.
Is that true for everybody that's a wife?
Well, it was back then. If you're not command sponsored, like
what's that mean, command sponsor?
Okay. They sent him over there. They didn't send me over there. I just went over there. So they weren't responsible.
Well, your
for me.
mother was not command sponsored, and she lived on base when y'all were growing up.
Yeah, well, she went with my dad. Get it? She arrived with my dad on the base.
Oh, and you did not arrive.
I was a tourist.
I gotcha. You should have gotten married over here before you went over there, and then you could have gone over here. Vicki,
but I had to think about it.
You had to think about it. So he was a military doctor.
Yes.
And what did you do while you were in Japan?
Oh, well, I met another military wife, and she says, hey, you want to be a model? I was 21 years old. I go, sure. Well, where? She goes, we'll go in Tokyo, and you're tall, because I was tall for, taller than the Japanese people. So I went down into Tokyo and worked as a model for 2 years. It was great fun.
Were your children born over there?
No. We just had 4 years of fun.
4 years of fun. And then you came back to the States. He got transferred?
Yes.
Where'd you come back?
We went to Jacksonville, Florida. And he served a year there and was diagnosed with sarcoidosis, and he was getting out of the Navy to come back to Little Rock. He was a Little Rock boy. He was coming back here to go and practice. And when you get out of the military, you have to have a medical, checkup. And they found these spots on his lung, and it was sarcoidosis. So it was just...
And y'all hadn't had any children yet?
I was pregnant with my first child, Christy, who will be... Well, I'm not going to tell her age. She'll get mad at me. So, and then we moved to Little Rock, Arkansas.
And you're pregnant, and you don't feel like that's a death sentence for him?
No, actually, she was born in Jacksonville. Okay. But as I'm driving here, I'm pregnant, and I don't know it. Again.
Girl.
With twins.
You know what causes that, right? Twins.
Twins. So, Jim started his practice. He was an OBGYN doctor, and he did pretty well with his illness. They could treat it. And then probably he had it for 15 years. In the last 2 years, he was pretty ill, but he still went to work. He didn't complain. And then he did die from his disease.
How old were your daughters and son?
10 and 9 years old. And I was 35.
So how do you deal with that? What did you do to cope through that? I mean, you've got these young children. How did you cope?
It was just unbelievable. I had a wonderful support group of friends. I couldn't have asked for better friends to just rally around our family, my kids and myself, and they just lifted us up and carried us.
You're not from Little Rock?
No.
But he died in Little Rock?
Yes.
Where was your mother living? Because she's not from Little Rock.
No,
either.
she was living in Florida.
Did she come up?
Yes, she did.
Because she lives here now.
Yes. She came. She came to to give me some help.
Prior to his death?
No. Actually, she came, she flew in, someone called her and said, you need to get here, you need to get here, he's going to die. Because I wasn't really talking to him. I wasn't there mentally.
What do you mean? Oh, mentally.
I wasn't talking to people. I was just trying to get through the day. And so it was funny. My mom shows up and go, wow, how did you get here? She goes, so anyway, she was here for a year.
So if he'd had it for 15 years, when did it go from optimism to, oh my gosh, he's going to die tomorrow? And or did it ever do that? Or did you just one day he was dead and you were just like, I knew it was coming, but I didn't think it'd be here?
No, about a year before he died, he went to the Mayo Clinic because he's a doctor and he's like, we got this, and just plays it off. And he went to the Mayo Clinic. I don't know what. I find out later they told him that he didn't have a long life ahead of him. He never told me that. And then he had a hemorrhage in his lung and ended up in the hospital and had part of his lung removed and got sepsis and died.
Was your father still living?
No, he had already passed away.
Did he pass away in the military?
No, he was retired. And he died pretty young, too. He was 52. See, it's kind of like we got a widow chain going on in my family. My grandmother was 25. My mom was 49. I was 35.
So your children, they coped?
Yes. Well.
Better than you, or how do you think you did it? I mean, if you were going to give advice out there to people that are listening, you say, how did you do it?
Just let your friends help you. Just let your friends help you. And, if you have someone, if I have someone who's passed away or their spouse has passed away, I'm not scared. You just go say, hey, I'm going to do this for you. Don't say, what can I do for you? Or because they're not going to tell you what they can do. You just need to go do it.
They don't know. They're in too deep of a fog. How long does that take before you turn the corner after something like that?
Oh, gosh.
I've never been through anything like that.
I think it took me about a year to realize this is it. This is for real. Yeah. It took me about a year to realize this is my life. This is
Did you go back to work?
I was working as a travel agent, yes. Yep.
I bet you were good as a travel agent.
I had fun.
Because you traveled everywhere.
Yeah, I had a great time.
And that career's kind of gone now the internet's happened.
They killed my job.
The internet.
They killed my job. No, I was working before my husband died. And then after he died, I kept working.
You're a big Catholic.
Yes.
So do you think that had anything to do with, or were you one then?
Oh, I was Catholic then, yes. Those people, that community just really carried us. I don't think I would have made it without them, truly. The friends and just my belief in God.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with military daughter, military wife, professional home worker, Miss Vickie Calhoun, dual citizen of the United Kingdom and the United States. I love saying all that. She laughs at herself. And when we come back, we're going to learn about life after the military. She has rebuilt her life.
Here we go.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy. I'm speaking today with the once military brat, military wife, widow, survivor, and current homemaker, Miss Vickie Calhoun, who is married to another guest of UIYB, Mr. Joe Calhoun, who's a lawyer in Little Rock, Arkansas. And we're going to talk about life after the military. She's got her Another great husband. She's rebuilt her life, has another child. And so how did you meet Joe?
It's blind date.
Blind date. I didn't know those ever worked out.
This was before the internet and all those. I mean, really, it was generically I met somebody. That's how my daughter puts it now. She'll say, "Oh, I met this guy generically." I said, "What does that mean?" Well, it wasn't on whatever those
Match.com.
I don't know what those things are called. So I guess it's about a year and a half after my husband died.
A friend set you up?
Yeah, I just kind of got tired of being the third wheel. I was just like I was just there with being the third person. So a friend of mine got out his Catholic High yearbook. He said, "Oh, there's about 7 guys in here. Let's start going through it."
That's Match.com. That's the original Match.com.
And so I said, "Okay,
Let's just start going through it."
We just started going through it. So we got to see, and there was Joe, and his Catholic High picture, his senior picture. I said, "No, I think I'd like to go out with him." But I looked at some of the other guys, and he was available. He was newly divorced, and he didn't have any children because that was the criteria. They couldn't have children, and they had to have hair because I didn't want to date a bald-headed man.
All you bald-headed men out there. I think that can be sexy, but okay, that's a good one.
So, it was a blind date. I'll never forget it. The kids, they were all looking out the window, okay? I'm looking out the window, too. I'd never seen them before either. So my friends are walking them up to the door, and I'm going, God, he is tall. He was like 6'2". My first husband was 5'7". And I'm going, oh. And then he was Joe.
He had hair.
He had hair. He had pretty hair, silver hair.
You know what they say about a bald man?
I don't know.
He doesn't have any hair.
Yeah. So anyway, Joe had beautiful silver hair, and now he has beautiful white hair. So he was a blind date, and
was it love at first sight?
No. Oh no.
No, Joe. I know he's listening.
Sorry, Joe. Well, he knows. Because he called me. We had that date. It was very nice. And I think about a week later, it was a week later, he called me and said, "Hey, can you go to lunch?" I go, "Well, sure. When?" He goes, "Today." I go, cleaning my lawn furniture. I was cleaning my lawn furniture.
Yeah, you can't go to lunch in those kind of clothes.
I said, "You're going to have to give me heads up. Like, I got to have at least a day or two advance notice. For real."
Yeah.
And so then we went on another date, and you know the rest of the story.
No, I don't.
Oh, yeah, you do?
How long before you got married?
It was a year and a half.
That's a long time. And your kids liked him?
At first. Until I decided to get married. Oh, my God, they're listening to this show.
And then what happened?
Oh, they weren't real happy about it.
They never are. They think they are, but they never are.
I could have been marrying Jesus, and they wouldn't have liked it,
So Joe was a saint to come into all that.
Oh, gosh. 3 kids, pre-teens. Yeah.
And then they came around.
Yes.
Were there any rules when y'all got married?
Yes.
What were they?
I'm the boss.
Boy, that was quick. Did you see that?
No, I just said to Joe, look, they knew their dad.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to be the disciplinarian, and you just got to have my back.
That's exactly what I did. Mm-hmm. You just can't have a stranger come in and be the boss.
No.
They will just end up not liking them.
Right. So I was the boss.
That's a good one. Mm-hmm. I think that's good advice. If you don't take anything away from this show today, if you
be the boss.
Be the boss. If you remarry a man, be the boss of your kids.
That's right.
If you were to is there anything you wish your father had done differently when you were a child? Did you ever think, why is he dragging me to all these countries? I wish Dad would do something differently.
Never thought about it. I didn't know any different. No. I loved every minute of it. I was sad when I went into civilian life. I was sad when I graduated.
Why did you decide not to go in the military? You were going to graduate from college and go in the military.
I met Jim, and that kind of took care of that.
Mm-hmm. He didn't want you to join? I mean, he was in the military. He was in the Navy.
No. He just, we could have been stationed in 2 different places. He could have gone there, and I'd be sent here or somewhere else. So it's difficult when they're both in the military.
You got to support somebody else's career. You have any regrets about that, about having been a supporter all your life to either your dad's career, your first husband's career, your second husband's career? You have any regrets about that?
No, not really. I think, oh, wow, I could have, it was a choice I made. And, we make our choices. And, and I'll think, well, people, my daughter out in California, she's on her career track, and I admire her for that. And my other children have made their choices. Everybody makes their choices. And I'm glad I made the choices I made. I had a good life. I mean, I hope it's not over.
Well, you've done a great job.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. As I told everybody at the beginning of the show, you are my friend, my neighbor, and we share supper club once a month with a bunch of girls. I really enjoyed visiting with you, Vicki, and first time we've ever drank on the radio.
Oh, really? That's a nice surprise.
This is a new thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you might want to start this. Can I make a little plug?
Sure.
Okay. So the teachers I had growing up in the military, they were all teachers who went, and it's called Department of Defense, and they hire teachers, and they get to go all over the world to teach us military kids. And if there's a teacher out there who wants to travel the world and teach those children, they need to talk to the Department of Defense, DOD. Get a job, go overseas, teach those kids. I had some of the best teachers ever.
Wow. Never thought about it. That's great. Thanks for that plug.
Yeah, I just want a little plug there.
I like it a lot. Vicki, you were easy to get a gift for because you've lived in so many countries. And so you have a desk set that has 6 countries because there's Great Britain, there's America, of course, United States, Great Britain, Japan, France, Germany. We didn't even talk about you living in France.
Oh, well, I was probably about to. And it's France.
France. Oh.
My mother with her British accent, it's so funny because she'll say, France. I go, Mom, it's France. She goes, no, it's France.
Yes, right. It's Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, France.
In France. Notre Dame is playing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'll put this on my desk.
Thank you. I'm so glad you were here.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Merry Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Merry Christmas.
And next week, our guest, it's going to be the best of 2018 next week.
2019.
I mean 2019. The best of 2019 next week. Tom and Ashley have been working really hard on it, and it's going to be a really great show. And then we're going to do and then the first week in January, we're going to be out of pocket again, so it's going to continue to be the best of 2019. So the next 2 weeks will be the best of short excerpts, which are perfect for my short attention span.
Oh, you don't have a short.
Oh, she's so sweet. Vicki, I love you.
Okay, I love you too.
All right.
Kerry.
I want to tell everybody who's listening, thank you for spending time with us. We hope you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening. And if you didn't, you haven't been listening. And whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
You've been listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy. For links to resources you heard discussed on today's show, go to flagandbanner.com, select radio, and choose today's guest. All interviews are recorded and posted the following week. Subscribe to podcasts wherever you like to listen. Kerry's goal is simple: to help you live the American dream.
So now we're off camera. You can tell everybody watching Facebook. She said she's got more stories. Oh! Vicki, that was fun.